Rosanna. I just wanted to quick explain kind of where the idea for our holiday ornament make-along came from. It is, I always have too many things on the table and knock them all over. It came from a story idea that I had a little over a month ago, and it just really got in my head, and so I went ahead and wrote it, and then I started illustrating on little bits of old envelopes, and that's how this story happened. And it's about a little girl who meets an older lady. She moves to a new house in the country. She meets this old lady who lives in this cute old pink cottage. They become friends because they both love ducks and hens, and the little girl helps this older lady to take care of her songbirds and fill her bird feeders. And yeah, they become good friends. And then at Christmas time, the little girl finds a dollhouse and also some spun cotton ornaments, and the old lady tells her the story of them, and then they end up making the cotton ornaments together. They make some new ones together. So that's, and they make little ducks and things. So that's kind of the story, and that's why we're making little ducks. The other reason we're making ducks is because, and geese, is that they're so simple, and I wanted to do something that required not too much painting for those of you who don't like that or get scared off by that, and also something that, you know, didn't have four fiddly little legs and a long tail and all of that more difficult stuff to sculpt. Ducks and geese are much simpler in my opinion, so I thought that was a very good beginner friendly project, and something that we could make look very old and like an heirloom or like a keepsake from many, many years ago. So I'm excited about this. I think that I'm hoping that a lot of you will have success with this and make some things you're really happy with. There is a kit that you can find in my shop that has a bunch of supplies for holiday ornaments. I'm not going to go through it with you because I just feel like that puts people off, and I don't want to be shamelessly plugging things, but there is a kit and you can find that linked. I do want to plug what my amazing friend did for that. She agreed, she's a chocolate maker, and she agreed to make 2 special chocolates inspired by the story. And so yeah, there's only 50 of each of these that exist in the world and they're so good. I got to try one of each of them. They're incredible. She makes the best chocolate in the world. I absolutely believe that. It's bean to bar, and she's amazing, and these are so fun. So that is part of the kit, and I just do have to mention that because it's so amazing, and also because the idea was, you know, that I used my chocolate wrappers always for the base of my sculptures, and I wanted some of you to have the chance to have her chocolate and then make something really, really special with the foil wrappers. So that was where that came from. But anyway, I just want to get to the make along because I know it's really long, but I wanted to give you a little bit of the backstory because there is something here. There was a reason that I chose this, and I hope it's meaningful to some of you, or if not meaningful, then just fun. So let's get making. Here's the supplies. I tried to keep it very simple for the duck and goose ornaments. So I'm going to show you how to make the duck with cotton balls and my glue mix. So that's school glue, just regular white PVA school glue mixed with water. And that's going to be the base for the duck. I'm using foil for wrapping the wire at the beginning. So you need some sort of wire. It can be uncoated wire like this. It can be a paper coated wire. I typically work with 24 gauge. These are both 24 gauge wire. I just bought a 26 gauge wire for doing some legs and feet, which I think has been nice too. So I have that coated with paper. These are my favorite pipe cleaners. Those are nice. I use that for the goose that we're going to make, for this goose. I always link everything that I can that's available online. I will put in the description with a link to that. I'm going to use some thread for making our goose, And I will demonstrate using my fancier fiber. So here's a cotton ball, here's my fancier, this is my favorite fiber right now, and I will use some cotton quilt batting for that goose. And then for the goose, I'm using my cornstarch mix instead of my glue mix. I'm demonstrating that for the first time. I'm loving that, actually. You might want some tacky glue, or you can just use undiluted Elmer's glue for a few of the other details. Hot glue almost always comes in handy. And for the feet, I'm just showing for this little duck, her feet are just wire covered in cotton, and I will demonstrate that. And then for this one, I did a little bit of crepe paper and hot glue. So you could use any sort of paper that you have. Probably something with a little bit more thickness to it would work a little better. And you might want some fiberboard possibly for the feet. So those are kind of the basic materials. I'm just thinking mica flakes are what I used for the top, and I also have gold mica dust or mica powder. You could use a metallic paint if you want, or glitter or anything. Glass glitter would be pretty, something like that. And then just I've decorated with ribbons, and then all of these little things, there's a separate video for those. So those are the very basic materials that you need for making your ornaments, and we're going to get going. I always forget I'm using coffee just for a little wash because I wanted to keep the painting very, very minimal. And I'm using watercolors today for just these small little, for the eyes and beak and feet, but you could use some sort of acrylic paint. So I think now that's everything. So I'm going to show you how to make a duck with just the cotton balls, and I'm going to use my school glue mix for that. And then I will hopefully have time to do a goose with you, and I'll just demonstrate using the cornstarch, and I'll probably use some quilt padding so that you can see how fun that is to work with. And that is something that you could purchase all kinds of different places. I mean, they definitely have some sort of quilt batting at most, like at a Walmart or something. Whether or not it would be 100% cotton, which is what works the best, I don't know, but definitely find it online with Joann's or Amazon. Anyway, so I'm going to do my cotton balls for our duck, and I'm going to show you how to do, I'll show you the correct way to do a bird foot, and I'll show you a cheater's way. And when you are doing feet, sorry, I've got, it's kind of like clouds are moving in and out today, so I'm gonna have to adjust my exposure a little bit. Otherwise the cotton balls blow you out sometimes, and then it gets too dark. Anyway, there's a cheater's way to do duck and goose feet, because you know, they've got like the flipper, and so you don't see the little toes. So you can just do a foot like that and just leave a little bit of your wire just bent like that, and you will cover it with cotton or cardboard usually is what I use, or you could use paper and just form the foot or the, you know, little flipper shape out of that and not worry about the toes. But if you want to be really clever, and if you're going to do other birds, it's handy to know how to do, let's see, an actual bird foot with the toes. So I almost have my lengths even here, not quite. As usual, I struggle a little bit because I don't know if I should look around the camera or just into my phone. For some reason, looking into my phone to do things it's not the same as seeing it for real. So you just twist your lengths together, and then you leave the ends free. This is a job that is made easier with a needle nose plier. The only thing I would say is if you're using paper covered wire, that needle nose plier can sometimes kind of tear your paper a little bit, which is kind of annoying. So just kind of take care with that and try to be gentle if you can be. And if you don't have paper covered wire, then that's not going to be a problem. This is 20, I'm thinking, I usually use 20, or I have been using 24 gauge wire for almost everything for several years. But I've been having a little bit of trouble with my usual paper covered wire. Just it seems like the paper isn't wrapped quite as tight and it comes off more easily sometimes on certain lengths of it, and I don't like that. So I tried a different kind, and this happened to be a 26 gauge wire. So, but so far, I really like how nice and smooth and tight the paper is. I always link everything, so this is something you can find in the description below. And I think for bird feet, I would say this is really nice to have a little bit, because wire gauges go, the smaller the number, the heavier the wire. So 26 is a little bit lighter, and it's very nice for putting together 4 strands. It doesn't get too thick and too hard to work with. So I think for small birds, actually this 26 gauge, boy, have I gotten deep into the reeds with wire. But you know, some of you actually like to know the specifics. So that's the little duck feet, or bird feet, any kind of bird. And they do have, it's handy. The reason, you might just think, oh, they have 3 toes, but they do have this little spur at the back, and you can trim that shorter. But it's nice to leave it a little long at first, because especially if you're wanting your bird to stand, that's going to give it that stability to not just topple over to the back. Now, these are mostly, I think, going to be tree ornaments, so that's not such a big deal. But it's just nice to know that you can make a kind of a freestanding figurine that way. So that's our duck feet, and we will cover them really at more towards the end of this project. Then we're going to take some foil, and you can actually do this without foil. So I may demonstrate with the goose without it. We'll see. I think a little bit of foil usually helps you all, is the feeling that I get when I read comments. But I could be wrong, and maybe I will move away from, with the mouse I didn't use foil, and I don't know how much success there was with that. I heard some, and others I think struggled. We are going for, or I am going for, a bit more primitive look with things, with these ornaments. So if things are not like proportional to what an animal really is, I'm not quite so concerned about it. I will show you, and I may have shown you in the intro, but I guess I'll just grab this stork. I don't know. I didn't study, and sometimes it's good to do a quick image search and just have a few in your head when you're making something, because I'm not someone who just carries images around I don't have a photographic memory, so I don't always remember the anatomy of animals correctly. So depending on what you're going for, you might want to do an image search and kind of think about what a duck, where are the legs on a duck, or how is the neck? Is it curvy, or does it curve back? I don't know if any of that's making sense to you, but sometimes it's nice to do a bit of that. Other times, if you're wanting to be a little bit more whimsical or interpretive with your form, that can kind of hang you up, because you will end up doing something very realistic instead of just like I said, a little bit more whimsical or naive or folk arty. So it's kind of, I don't know, I think that's a hard line to walk sometimes with art, is being literal or interpretive. And I try, okay, so what we're doing here, I have in the past, actually, let's do our tape. I'm deciding, I'll show you with the goose how you can just wrap and not do any tape here, and use less glue mix. But let me do tape, because I want to show different different techniques because I think it's nice for you to have options, because not everything works the same for everyone, and not everyone has the same materials available or the same sort of capabilities. So if the other method I'm going to show you is wrapping thread around cotton, and I find that kind of a fun way to do it, but that may be difficult for some of you, maybe with arthritis or for whatever reason it just won't be as simple. This looks very tiny. I don't know if I'm going to end up with this little tiny duckling with great big feet that I could probably trim down. But I wanted to, oops, there goes her head. So I needed the tape anyway. I wanted to try a little smaller because most of what I've been making has been, I would say in my practice, has been a little bit larger than my usual stuff, especially like this one. I'm trying to pull it out without knocking. That's a really big goose. I really like it, but it's very much larger than my usual things. So maybe I'm going to have a smaller duck here. And you don't have to completely cover it with tape, but just get the majority of it covered. Okay, and I'm going to put a little bit up here because the head fell off and I don't want the head to be popping off when I go to add cotton. Now you can give yourself a little cheat here with the tape and give yourself the beginning of a beak, and that will make it easier to have a little bit of something to build your beak around. There are different ways to put a beak on a bird, and I will try to demonstrate a different way with the goose. Okay, so this is definitely an odd duck so far. We'll see what it turns into. I mean, with the foil, there is some, like, I could bring its neck back a little bit. I could give it a little different shape, or I could make it more of a runner duck. Okay, now we've got our cotton balls, and I just like peel them apart so that they're more in layers. Now we're gonna do glue mix, which is just Elmer's school glue, or you might call it PVA glue, and water. 1 part glue to 4 parts water. So this is not actually, I've changed my technique a lot because I've been trying out this cornstarch and using batting and all of this. I've tried to go back to, well, it's not back for me. I've never done it before, but I'm trying to do spun cotton in a more traditional way, and that has meant it's really interesting. I hope you can see the difference when I do the goose, but it's a lot drier, and I basically can do the whole thing in one coat now, like just one kind of little session of applying cotton and starch. And I might have to come back in to do a little bit of bulking out or adding a few more details, but some birds I can get done just like all in one shot. It takes maybe 20 or 30 minutes and I'm done. So that's been really interesting. And then the dry time is much less because the cornstarch mix just doesn't have as much water content, so it dries much faster. And gosh, this looks so much like a piper and so little like a duck right at this moment that I'm wondering if I'm not making a duck for you all, but I hope that I can turn it into it because I don't think that a Christmas piper is a very traditional. I was hoping to make, I think ducks are kind of a fun Christmassy kind of bird, I hope, or a goose definitely is. There are not any ducks in the 12 days of Christmas, but there are 6 geese, and I thought about doing a swan with you all, but I just don't know how long I can make this video, so we'll see what's possible. But a swan is very simple. I just keep covering. I definitely have way too much leg sticking out here, so I'm gonna have to get a little creative about how I hide that. And I will trim down the toes, obviously, so that the feet are more proportional to the size of the duck. Okay, let's get her head on here. And I like to just wrap when I can because that saves a little bit of glue mix. Okay, so I'm gonna change my exposure again. A lot of you ask about drying, and I do go the cheaters route most of the time because I need to have it done quickly when I'm trying to film in one day or when I'm making things and I'm on a timeline that I can't just let it dry for 24 hours air drying. So I use a warm oven or a toaster oven, and that speeds it up a lot. But I've been letting it sit out when I can overnight, and a lot of times now that it's cooler, it's not drying in that time. So I think that switching over to this cornstarch mix and doing the beginning form a little bit differently, where I don't start in with the starch mix until I have a good layer of cotton on. I like that because it means that this dries much faster, and that can be a speedier craft project or art project for all of you, and you don't necessarily have to fire up your oven to get it done in a day. But it is nice now that I encourage you, now that we're in heating season, at least in the northern hemisphere, take advantage of your radiators or your heating vents or whatever you've got, producing a little air movement and maybe a little extra warmth, and let your things dry there. But I would warn you, my cats love to take my little cotton things, and so if you have pets that are kind of nosy or like to take things or just, I don't know, find a new toy, I would say put your cotton project in a place where they don't have access, because I have lost many little creatures because the cats found them. And there's Pip. He has come to I don't know if you can see well, he went out of frame, but he came to try to pull the lights off and now he's making a nest in a place he shouldn't, but I'm not gonna bother him right now. He's just gonna get to do what he does. Okay, this looks a little rough as things often do when I'm making on camera. So let's see if I can round out her head a little bit, but I don't want to make her neck really isn't probably as thin as it ought to be. So I think I'm gonna make there are little call ducks, and they have very short little necks. They're kind of this plump looking, at least. A lot of birds are not. They look plump, but there's not a lot to them under those feathers. Okay, I think we're gonna go with more of a call duck shape. And I don't know about the bill. I might have made that a little wide, but I'm gonna show you because I think it's important to know how to not correct mistakes, but fix things a little bit if you don't really like how you've done something the first time. There are ways that you can come in and make a few adjustments to it. Boy, we are yo-yoing between overcast and sunny. Okay, so I'm going to let her dry, and then I'm going to show you how you can trim the beak and thin that out a little bit, and just fix something just a little bit when it's not quite how you want. That is important because I know a lot of you like will go, you know, through the trouble of making something or starting on something, and then you are not liking the direction that it took or the shape that it has or whatever, and it seems like, this isn't going to be something that looks the way I wanted. You don't know how many times I've just cut a figure apart. I mean, I shouldn't say that like I'm just hacking things apart all the, but quite a few times I have just gone in and cut off a leg, cut off the side, cut off a head. I know that sounds really kind of grotesque because these are little characters, but sometimes you have to, if you want to salvage something, you just have to go in and be a little bit, I don't know, like drastic, take some drastic measures just to pull something back a little bit and make it something that you still like. Okay, so once again, I will say that the legs and the feet look still giant, but we're gonna figure out how to make that work with this little duck, and I will dry her in my oven, a warm oven, so I just put it at I heat it up to 350 and I turn it off and set them in, but you can do like 250. Mine always get a little bit of a toasted actually toasted look, like they'll have a little bit of yellowing and browning. Now this is not all, this has some coffee on it to kind of age it, but it will have a bit of it will look toasted, like a golden, not golden brown, but just slightly a little bit of color. So don't put yours up that high if you don't like that. So this is editor Rosanna stepping in. I am going through all the clips and realized that even though I think I'm sometimes overly thorough in what I show or explain, other times I think I completely like kind of gloss over certain things that I think might be self-explanatory or just easily understood, or I do this, I will say, or you could do this, here's another alternative, but I think, oh, I probably don't have time to demonstrate that, so I'll just explain quickly. In my mind I think I will explain quickly but I don't, and so I end up taking almost as much time just kind of like talking you through it but not actually doing it. So here's what I wish I had actually filmed in my original clips, so I'm just doing it now because I do want you to have alternatives so that this meets most people at a level that they're at. And so I am going to cover a little duck, the little duck I started with you. I'm going to cover her feet with cotton, but I'm going to be very honest, I probably will try to cut most of that part out if I can, if I'm not saying something that can't be removed from the video, because I don't think that they turned out that great, and I honestly think that it's much easier to do the feet with fabric or with your quilt batting or with a little piece of fiberboard or paper. I just wouldn't even bother. I'm going to show you with the goose how to use crepe paper around wire, but I just wouldn't bother doing it, wrapping the feet the way I did with cotton. So that's editor me stepping in to tell you that the way I did it for the make along as I was filming the make along isn't probably what I would recommend now. So I'm going to show you my different options, and also I'm going to do surgery on this duck. This is like maybe one of the first ones I made with a cotton ball when I was just seeing you know, what sort of things came out as I was practicing for the make along. And so with this I'm going to demonstrate some different things that you can, different ways and different materials you can use for the bill, for the wings, and for the feet. So first I'm going to show you this, which is that if you don't want to mess with legs at all and feet at all, what you can do is you can either build your little form around a loop of wire like this, like I started with for our first little duck, except that I used the 4 twisted wires, but you don't need to use the 4, you can just use 1. Or you can even not have wire at all, and you can use 2 pieces of toothpick stuck into your foil form, and these little toothpicks will come down. Just leave them a little long so that you have room to play, like I always tell you, and they're going to poke into a piece of corrugated cardboard. Now, if you use the toothpicks, I would recommend going into either a thick piece of cardboard or 2 layers of it if you have thinner corrugated cardboard. So this does have toothpick legs, which you can barely see because they're short, and then I just poked it down into cardboard, and I sculpted around it with a little bit of my cotton ball, and then I just added a little bit more cotton to mimic feet, but they aren't really, you know, they're just kind of part of the base. So that was the way I fudged that. But you can also do this. You can take your legs and poke them through. If your wire is stiff enough, you can poke right through the corrugated, and then you will bend it. Trying to get it through. Okay, then you will bend it over and glue these 2 pieces together, and then you can shape your little form around your wire there, and then do feet or no feet. Just put some, like, you can build up with cotton and just make it look like snow, or you can sculpt some feet on there if you want to. So that's one way that it's very secure in there, and you can either do this once you have your duck form started, or to start and then build your form around it. One other option is just take a piece of your batting or a felt if you have it, make a little snip, put your wire through just the bottoms, and do the same thing, bend it over a little bit, and then I would just, I always use hot glue because it's very fast, but for those of you who are more environmentally conscious and avoiding plastics if you can, then use a more friendly glue. I don't know that the cornstarch mix is going to hold it very well. It might if you put it there and just can leave it for a long time to set up, but I think you'll be better off using a little bit of craft glue or hot glue. So that's another option for just a very, very simple base. Then you can use fabric to form a little foot. So this one I did the real 4 wires twisted together, and then I just take a little piece of cotton muslin, and again I'm using my friend here, my hot glue gun, or really it's more of a warm glue gun because I don't have the super high temp glue, which is why I can touch it right away. But I don't know that this method, the way I'm showing it to you, will work as well with craft glue, but it might. I just haven't tried it yet, so I can't guarantee that. The hot glue is kind of, because if you've worked with hot glue, you know how it is. It's kind of setting, it's providing some structure here in a way, you know? It's setting up as a little extra rigidity in those fibers of the fabric. And then I did this, and then I kind of trimmed off along the end so that the little nails could stick out like toes, because I thought that looked kind of cute. So I think that once this is painted, this would look pretty nice. I think this is a super easy option, much less fit. And I probably would just leave these legs and not even wrap them with cotton if it were me, because I don't mind that primitive wire look. But you could paint, this is paper covered wire, or you could use uncoated wire and have it be very primitive and rusty, or you can go ahead and coat the, twist some cotton around and coat the legs. But I just wanted to show you that as an option too. And then I will show you with this one, it's gonna be a graphic here, graphic violence. I hope that YouTube doesn't actually pick me up saying that and think that there is. So there's no violence happening to anyone here. This is just a cotton animal receiving a little surgery. Okay, so I cut off the beak, and I'm cutting off the wings because I want to show you how to make a wing that isn't just sculpted to the side. Whew, those wings flew. I'll have to get them later. And then her feet down here, I was just trying out kind of the flippers or the feet attached right to the body. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do it with fiberboard so that you can see what it might look like if you don't want to bother much with legs. But I think what it will look like is kind of some of those vintage like 40s, 50s, and 60s little, you know, those little bobble, I don't know if you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll find a picture if I can, but they have a little bobblehead, and then they're just kind of like, my grandma had a Santa, and he was like a little spool kind of shape and a bobblehead, and then he just was sitting on two little flat pieces of wood for feet. I think that's kind of what the look I would go for, is just make it look like, embrace the kitschiness or the kind of tackiness of it, and make it look like that's what you were wanting. So what I'm going to do with this one, because we're doing kind of a silly look, is I'm just going to do some wings that are kind of sticking out and a bill that's open, because the other two I'm showing you are kind of more formal and, you know, they've got their wings nicely folded beside them, and they are not quacking loudly or being silly. But we'll make this one a little bit more of a character. So I didn't intend to have to show you 3 different characters, but I feel like this might be useful to some of you. And you know, since I divide the video into chapters, you can always skip the things that are not interesting or helpful to you. So I'm gonna make its bill quite large, because I'm doing a caricature. Like I said, I want it to be a little bit loud and body and over the top. So I'm just going to put my hot glue here. Don't worry about, you know, glue sticking out, because we're going to go around it a little bit with more cotton. But you can already see, like, this is gonna be a funny, you know, it'll kind of look like those goofy little ornaments that some of our grandparents had, or at least I'm thinking of a certain kind. I think it was probably from the 50s and 60s, but I don't actually know. And then you just take some batting, or I think you can use, like if you have a wool felt blend, you could probably try that. I think you'll have to attach it. I don't know that the starch mix will work on it. I just don't know, because I haven't tried it. But so I think you might have to attach it with hot glue, and then I don't know that you'll be able to, like, I like to cover my batting with a little bit more cotton. I don't know how the cotton will attach to felt, but if you're okay just leaving it as it is, I think that's an option. You can also use fabric and glue on a little wing with fabric and leave that as it is, or you can coat that with cotton. You can also do that with paper. Those are all options. Now, if it makes it easier for you, you can dab a little bit of hot glue, and then your wing is quite attached, and then when you go in with more cotton, it's not going to move around on you. I don't usually bother doing that, because I don't usually have a lot of trouble keeping it where I want it, but that's just an option for you if it helps you. Okay, very quickly. And then what I'll do is I will just speedily show you. Like, I won't talk through the next part where I just bulk it out with a little bit of cotton. In fact, I might not even show you, because you're going to see me adding cotton on the other figures. I'll just come back and show you how this turns out when I add a little bit of cotton to kind of cover up where I've attached these things. So then all I'm going to do is make some big feet. I don't know quite how big I should make them, but I want them to seem like they're a little exaggerated. So something like that. And then I will just glue those on. So I'm not going to take any more time, because I'm really trying to cut this video down from the amount of footage that I had, which was probably insane. I mean, a lot of you are like, it's okay, we're okay with the long form, but I think you might have drawn the line with how long this was before I came in and tried to speed things up and cut things out. So anyway, that's our duck with one, our big loud duck with 1 foot. I will just show you. So you've seen basically how I did this, you know, or how you could do it. And I'll just show you how she turns out so that if you want to try that, you can. I'm also jumping in here very, very quickly, I promise. You responded. I thought that little starch video about making the cornstarch mix would just get no attention. I just wanted it to be there for a resource. But like tons of you have watched it and lots of you have commented, and many of you were way ahead of me on that one and had already, you know, were using it and happy with it. So I'm glad that I did read. That is why, I mean, I had read several of you comment in some of the last videos, like, oh, you know, I used the starch, and I was like, I better try that. And because I wanted it to be the old-fashioned way, I thought, well, I should try it. If not now, then when? So anyway, thank you for helping me along with that. Yes, you were right, those of you who mentioned it. And I don't know, I could come back. Something terrible might happen. I don't know what it would be, but maybe something weird would happen and I would have a reason to recommend school glue again. But so far, I mean, I had some questions like, oh, I live in England, it's very damp. Is it going to like hold up? I can't tell you that. All I know is that this is what was used, you know, 200 years ago, where it originated in Germany and Czechoslovakia and maybe some parts of Russia. I think that Germany can be quite wet. I don't know. There are ornaments that are, you know, almost that old that are still around, so I think it will be okay. But one of you recommended putting some essential oils in for kind of the antiseptic properties, you know, as a little insurance policy. But also, like, then your thing, whatever your ornament is going to smell good. So I just added orange oil and clove essential oil, and I think that's, I don't know, I'm just really excited about this. So thank you for also, you know, confirming or affirming that this is fun and a good product, or whatever, a good thing to use. And let's all try it, and hopefully it's as good as it seems. But this is now my orange and clove starch, so I'm going to use that on this little duck, and I'll get back to you. I'm going to show you a goose, and I'm going to demonstrate that with the cornstarch mix, which I'm going to do more of a cheater's leg for this goose. And I'm not going to do the 4 strands of wire. I'm just going to, and I realized how I can shorten my duck legs. You guys were probably shouting at your phone, tablet, or TV, or however you're watching me, like, just unwind the wire, dummy, and trim it off. Like, you don't have to shove the leg up into the duck. So anyway, I think sometimes my brain's, it's not always great, even when I'm not recording, but when I am recording, I have a really hard time thinking. I think it's the thinking and talking that throws me off. Anyway, so here are what's going to be our goose legs, and geese do have a little bit, if you're going for realism or some approximation of it, enough that it's recognizable. I think that's the main thing, is there needs to be a few elements that are recognizable as whatever animal you're trying to make, and then the rest can be kind of whatever happens. Now I'm just going to fold them over a little bit like that, and that's going to be what I cover for our little foot. And then this will probably get kind of bent up here a little bit. We could, do you want to do one with a pipe cleaner? I don't think I did it with the duck, I just used the foil, but let's just use a pipe cleaner to give us a little bit more structure here. I don't know why I didn't. I've been not using a lot underneath these new sculptures I've been making, just a little bit of foil and not as much wire. I don't know why that's what I've been doing, but it's just been happening that way. But anyway, we're going to kind of go with that. We'll see what happens with Mr. Goose here. Okay, and then some foil. Or did I say I was going to do just cotton for this one. No, I'm going to do foil. I'm going to do foil, but I'm going to show you how you can kind of dry wrap. And I think that's really neat to just not have layers and layers of soaking wet cotton. So when you're doing that, you don't really need to fill as much of your form out with your foil, because I'm going to do a nice big thick layer of cotton now. Okay, so obviously his legs are way too long. I'm going to have to trim them off in a little while, but like I say, with arms and legs, it's always nice to actually be too long to start, because otherwise you might have to settle for little stubby legs, which can be cute, but that can also be really frustrating if that's not what you were really hoping for. Okay, so this looks like a mess, but this is kind of how I do the dry wrap. And I'm going to run and shut off my oven because I just heard it beep at me. Okay, I'll be right back. And then you just take a long length of, now it would be actually nicer to have longer than this, but I find that it gets tangled. So this is kind of the length that I don't know if this would be about 2 feet, I would say. It's just like cotton, just any kind of cotton thread that you have. It could be thicker, it could be just any color even. I mean, I probably wouldn't choose like black or navy. I think I have too much cotton on this guy's neck. We need a skinny neck. Okay, let's do that. And I'll put a little bit up here for the head. Okay, there we go. And geese have, I know that it's hard to tell, especially between some different of the varieties of ducks and geese. Some of them have things about them that make them look more or less like the kind of typical duck or goose. But I think typically a goose has a little longer neck than a duck, and of course they're usually larger, and they have really huge feet. Like their feet are all like, compared to a duck foot, it's all like kind of bulgy, and I don't know, not that I'm not gonna spend a lot of time making a big bulgy goose foot, but I just noticed that and then of course like their bills are sometimes have, I guess geese are maybe kind of a bulbous creature, kind of have all these lumps, like more exaggerated lumps. Like a duck is kind of smooth, and a goose is kind of like more of it's like the duck bodybuilder, just kind of a more, I don't know, I don't want to say like masculine looking bird, but just bigger features, I guess. Okay, that looks odd, I know, but that's kind of like, I like that it gives you this layer of cotton, but there's no moisture here, and it's very secure. Like it's a nice tight, I could make it much tighter, but I don't find that I need to. And I'll show you this one again. I really like when the cotton wrinkles when I do this kind of technique. I like that it's not quite as firm to the form, and so we get kind of some organic sort of movement of the cotton as I'm working with it, and as it's drying it kind of shrinks or does unexpected things. And for me, I like that. If you don't like that, if you don't want your cotton to be wrinkly, then I would say that more of the layers of wet is going to be what you want to do. That will give you more control, and that's fine. Like we can all like different things. I just tend to I like doing things that kind of take a little bit of the control away from me, because I am a person who typically in my life controls everything that I can, So when I am making, that is like one place where I'm open to things going differently and not always being quite so controlled. For some reason, that is okay with me in this one part of my life. And I do like when I let go a little bit, because I find that some of my favorite things have been made when I didn't know what I was doing. And I don't know what that says about me as an artist, because I do find as I get better at things, I sometimes like my work less. So I don't know. I've always been drawn to folk art, but I'm not sure if I fit into that folk art category exactly with what I make a lot of times. And I wish that I could figure out how I could fit into that category better, but so I think sometimes I try these different techniques, like this more old-fashioned technique with the cotton batting and cornstarch, because that puts me back at kind of that beginner level again, and I have to figure out how to do it, and I just don't have as much control over it. And so when I make things, it maybe doesn't look so much like my work. Isn't that weird that I don't want my work to look like my work? I want it to look different from from what I'm used to it looking like. So I don't know if some of you can relate to that in your creating, that you would, I don't know if that's trying to grow, or if that's kind of like, it might be more like self-hate. I don't know. I don't want it to be that, or just not being able to appreciate what you make yourself. I hope it's not just that. I hope it's more just kind of like wanting to see what you can do and see how you can evolve. I'm going to pause this for a second because I noticed my hands had migrated out of the shot, and I want to make sure that I was in shot for most, or that I was in the frame for most of this. But you can see when you're working with the cornstarch how it's not going to give you this, your hands are wet but not sticky, I would say, and so the cotton just doesn't get stuck to you the same way. Okay, I think I had gone out for a little bit, and I apologize. I don't know that you missed a ton with that, but so what I'm going to do is scrunch his tail down a little bit, so that I want his back to mostly be straight, partly because I think geese are pretty straight across there, and partly because I'm having fun putting things on the backs of my birds, and so I want it to be able to hold a package or a Christmas pudding or something like that. So I'm just now going to cover up that little scrunchy part. But anyway, I do encourage you to try the cornstarch route. It also works with tapioca starch or potato starch, but I'm assuming, and I think in the UK you call it corn flour, just the very, very fine powder made of corn. And I think that will be what most of you are able to find the most easily. So that's why I think traditionally potato starch was what they used. And I had potato starch. I think I bought it a long time ago because I read that potato starch is what they used for spun cotton, and then I just didn't try it out for a long time. I thought that it would be weird and difficult to work with, and I think I was very wrong. I'm seeing if I can stretch out that neck a little bit. I think, like I was saying, it's important to find a few characteristics of whatever you're representing and be fairly true to a few of those, so that there are a couple recognizable features with whatever you're making. Otherwise, like with my groundhog that I showed in a video, which is a very odd animal to make, I would have to say. I don't know why. I chose it because it was Groundhog's Day on the day I was making it. But it's not an animal that most people think about very much or see. It doesn't even live a lot of places. And also it looks like a lot of other, like it kind of is a very generic animal. So that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to decide what to make is... It's nice to choose an animal that will have some distinguishing things about it, and then you won't have people trying to guess what you made. I have a little trouble with cats. Funny enough, I love cats. Have lived with them forever. You would think that I would know what they look like, but I have a lot of trouble making recognizable cat. Or to me, I think they're one of my weaker animals. My mom once saw a black cat sculpture that I made, and I think she thought it was like, I feel like she asked if it was a weasel. I don't know. I was like, oh wow, I missed the mark with that one. Anyway, that's my grandma's bird clock going off. I'm trying to think. I was looking at swan pictures, and I think I'm making my wing quite a bit larger than what I have been making for geese. So let's trim it down a little bit. I don't think their wings are quite that large, but like I said, you don't have to be literal. And also a very tiny wing could be really cute too. It's sometimes fun to make something either, like very oversized or undersized, and that's something that we can do too with like accessories. Like if you made a very tiny top hat, that would look cute for your bird. So anyway, for those of you who, like me, get hung up just kind of copying what's happening like in reality rather than just having fun, I'm actually going to put I just tore off a little bit of my batting. I want the breast to be very broad, like very puffed out and proud, like a goose is. They look like they have great posture. Like that's how a ballerina or something is supposed to. Well, I don't know. A dancer will probably correct me. I doubt that any good dance teacher told anyone to stand like a goose. I'd be interested to know if they did tell you to stand like any type of animal, but probably not a goose. Okay, so this is where rather than really, instead of smushing the cotton down very, very firmly, I leave it a little bit looser with this. Now, I don't think that this works with cotton balls very well. And when I have left cotton balls kind of loose, it doesn't give you kind of that graceful wrinkling effect. It just looks loose. Like it just looks like, you didn't take enough time to get the cotton attached. So I don't know why. I think it has something to do with kind of the airiness in these fibers compared to the cotton ball. This is something if you've not worked with cotton before or made anything with cotton, I don't think that will make sense to you. But if you have and you've worked with cotton balls, you know how dense they get as you are. And here is where you can decide. So you saw I put the pieces of batting down. I put a little bit of the starch underneath the front of the wing. Then I covered with my cotton fiber. Now you can decide. You could leave your wing loose and you could add a little bit of starch and just kind of close up that fiber a little bit and leave your wing to kind of have a little bit of movement, or so that you could tuck something behind it, like if you're going to tie a package up over the back or something like that. You can leave it, or you can just make it part, just a solid sculpture and just sculpt the wings down. And that is what I'm going to do with this goose, I'm not going to worry about leaving the wings free at the back. I just am going to make it pretty simple. I keep having to... Now it's quite cloudy. Almost looks rainy, but I don't think it's going to. Okay, so I'm kind of brushing back here, and you can see that it's giving me a little bit of texture, and I still need to get this tail. It's just not quite. But I like that it might be a little wrinkly there. Okay. Now I know it still looks funny because I've left the legs and haven't trimmed them off yet, but I will get the legs fixed up here once she's dry, or he's dry. And then we'll decide, do I want to add a little bit more, any more to the layers or to the shape of him, or, you know, bulk him out, make him a little plumper. You know, geese have that. I need to add a little bit to the top of his head, I think, and then that little lump on the bill, I think, is what makes a goose look like a goose. Although when I was looking, they don't all absolutely have that little bump at the top. I hope you know what I'm talking about. It looks like, I haven't made it very well yet, but it's just right there where the bill kind of attaches with the little lump. I should look up if that is if it has a function, or if it's just something weird that they bred for some reason, because they liked the look of it. So here is that nice quality with the cornstarch, which I can't do as well with. So that is more, I would say, how a goose... I mean, I know it looks a little strange now because the bill is not really set apart or defined yet with color, but I would say that is more the shape of a goose head. And what I was saying is, I wouldn't be able to do this much sculpting with my fingers with the glue. Now, I don't want to discourage anyone from using the glue mix, the Elmer's glue mix. It's fine. It's served me very well over the years, and I don't know how much I will continue to use it, but I will demonstrate with it at least some in the future. I don't want to just throw it out, but I definitely, so far, I'm seeing lots of benefits of the cornstarch. And I mean, I don't either want to, but it's cornstarch compared to, I don't know that specific ingredients in school glue, PVA glue, but it's, you know, synthetic, I'm sure, and probably not as good to have just against your skin, being absorbed whatever is in there. I don't think it's like toxic, but it's definitely not as natural as cornstarch and water. So I just think there's lots of reasons to try this out, and I feel happy that it has worked so well. So I do recommend. And I don't know if like I said, I don't know how the video is going to be set up, but I make this and then I just pop it in the fridge when I'm not using it. And it doesn't really set up or anything in the fridge. It's fine to just use out of the fridge, but you can add a little water or drain a little water off if you want to, but I haven't really found that I need to do that so far. I may, as I use it more, have more of a preference about it. Now this goose, I will still be able, because its neck is very thin and because it's got the pipe cleaner, I should still be able to move it some after it's dry, so I'm not going to worry too much what pose it's in. But okay, so I don't want to say this is all because of the materials I used, that this form has turned out better than my duck. It might be because it's the second one and I'm settled in a little bit, and not, I do get a little nervous when I'm starting filming and making on camera. So that might be part of why it's turned out better. But I feel like it gives me a lot more control over the form with the cornstarch and with the fiber and the batting rather than the cotton balls. So I definitely think like we can make some really nice fun things out of cotton balls, but if you're getting more serious about spun cotton and you want to see, I guess, where you can go with it, investing in some different materials and a little bit nicer fibers can definitely give you better results. So he or she, I think probably he, will go into the oven now too. Okay, here's little duck. You hear? I have 4 pairs of scissors because I have different scissors for each application. And I do have, for those of you who've suggested I would benefit from this kind of scissor, I have these, which are a gift from someone. I don't pull them out that often because for whatever reason, it's not even that I don't like them. I actually just am not good at using them. I'm not used to them. And so even though they're smaller, I don't cut as well with them for whatever reason. I think it's just being used to these big fist scars that I primarily use, and also those little needle nose ones. They just I don't know, they cut in places I'm not expecting them to. I'm always like, oh wow, I just cut something off that I thought was in a safe area and I just snipped it right off with those. So I'm just not very proficient with those tiny snips. Oh, and this is a way you can make a bill open if you want to. I guess I haven't done any of the ducks that way. I could just snip her bill open and we could have a little open mouth duck. I'm not sure that's what I want. Oh, I gotta switch over. I have my cornstarch out. Let me go back to the glue. Because I want to be true to, you can see, even just re-wetting the fibers that I've used glue on, and then I need to pull the cotton back out, or the cotton balls back out. It's just, I'm already stuck. So, and I do say to you, like, I don't get stuck as badly, I know, as some of you are, like, describing being very, very frustrated and covered in cotton. I usually don't get that bad anymore, but I'm getting used to working with the cornstarch, and so I'm not being as careful as I used to be with kind of keeping my fingers out of this. I had always relied on my brush to keep me from getting stuck. And Pip is back and making another nest in my supplies. Pip. Okay. And you can see that little bit of color there from the oven. And you can also see kind of, that's just the cotton ball texture. It's just a tiny bit lumpy. It's not as easy to get the very, very smooth shape with your cotton balls. I'm sorry, I don't want to do the open mouth for the duck, but all you do is you just literally snip it right in half, and then you just use your glue wash to kind of smooth out any fibers. If you need to add a tiny bit of fiber inside the mouth to cover like your tape or whatever, you can do that. It's very easy. And I want to add a tiny bit of width to the tip of the bill, which is sometimes tricky. Not sure if it's gonna work out, especially with cotton balls. They just don't have as much finesse as that really fine fiber, so I'm a little bit spoiled working with that a lot of the time, but it's definitely not that, it's not a hardship to use a cotton ball and glue. it works. You can make some nice things with it. My standards get a little high, and that's where talking about going back and taking some things out and making it difficult for yourself. You can sometimes make something really cool under those conditions. Structures like that challenge us, force us to be more creative sometimes. I don't know if that makes sense. I think I have talked about that once in a make-along a long time ago. I'm stuck with a little ball here, so let me see if I can work that off. Okay. Anyway, yes, when our materials or circumstances limit us, artistically, that can sometimes be a very good thing, and we can find ways to get around that and be more creative because of it. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit to the wings because since I didn't use batting for them, they don't have as much definition yet. I'm going to see if I can get some approximation of that kind of, so I'm kind of pushing down with my brush underneath there to try to sculpt a little line for the wing. You can see there's a little wing there. Okay. So call ducks don't have much tail. I will add a little bit back there, but not a whole lot because they don't have a very dramatic, in fact, a call duck they're very cute, but there's nothing very dramatic about their shape. I'm a fan of cute, as you know. There's nothing wrong with kind of plain and cute. I keep wanting to get a piece of the cotton ball that isn't quite so lumpy, but it just is all coming out a little lumpy. There are different fibers linked below. I have found in the past that there used to be really nice fiber in like vitamin and supplement bottles, but everything that I have bought in the last few years doesn't come with that cotton anymore, but that was really nice, smooth fiber. The other thing you can do is just embrace the lumpiness and find it charming. I used to use some really old upholsterer's cotton batting, and that was full of like natural like plant material from the cotton plant and nubs, and I kind of liked that really lumpy, organic, natural look, so maybe that's what we've got with this little duck. Okay, she's cute actually. I do like her little round, plump shape, and yes, she's a little lumpy, but that's okay. She's like those of us who have more cellulite tissue. That's cute. That's just how we're made. So, mostly dry, not completely, but dry enough to work on these feet. I'm going to trim the wire off. I'm not quite sure yet. I need to kind of... So we're going to try with crepe paper. I'm just going to take this piece of crepe So this is not, it's not like the party streamer. It's a tiny bit thicker than that. This is actually crepe I found at the thrift store for making crepe paper flowers. So it's got more, it's stronger, it is stretchy, just a little bit more structure and sturdier than the streamer crepe. But I think you could use that. It's just, it might want to, with the glue wash, disintegrate a little bit. I'm not sure. If it gets wet, I feel like it might want to do that. I think I'm actually going to do my hot glue trick probably. So I'm going to cut it back a little bit so I don't have all that extra. And then I'm going to put some hot glue in here and smush it onto the wire. Okay, then I can trim up the foot, shape it how I want to with my scissors, my many pairs of scissors here. So I think I may have just completely gone out of frame while I was doing that leg, and I apologize, but thank goodness our goose has 2 legs, so you get to see that again if you, or not see it again, because you get to see it for the first time if I was completely out of the shot. So I'm just wrapping until the end is just absorbed into itself. This leg is going better anyway, so I may just cut that little section out if it wasn't usable or useful. Here they are, pretty much fully dry, I would say. I just wanted to mention one of the reasons I'm doing ducks and geese for this make along is that I really wanted it to be very simple. And I know there are many kinds of ducks and geese, and some of them have really amazing markings and colors, very interesting, and you could get very creative with the painting for them. But I wanted to do something where you would have to do very minimal painting, because I think that is a place where some of you who are not so much experienced with painting and maybe don't feel as comfortable with that, you get to that point and then you're like, ugh, I don't like how this is turning out, or you just feel nervous about doing it and you don't want to ruin, quote unquote, ruin your little form. So I thought, well, let's think about what wouldn't require very much painting, and it would be very simple, the painting that it does require. So we're just going to leave the cotton as it is, and because I'm going for kind of a primitive aged look, like these are kind of an heirloom ornament, I'm going to do just a light coffee wash. I have some coffee in here, and then I'm going to use some of this mica powder, gold mica powder, which you can find from different suppliers. It's used in a lot of like cosmetic type things, so you can find small amounts of it. And then I'm going to use some mica flakes to just make them very sparkly and magical and festive. But if you don't have those things, it's fine. Or if you have glitter, that works too. But I just wanted to mention that's why I'm not getting fussy or doing very much at all with the painting this time, because I wanted it to be very approachable and not intimidating for those of you who don't have as much confidence with the painting. So I've got back here, bring it forward, a little palette of watercolors. You could definitely use craft paint, and I think it's up to you. I think you could definitely do like a black or brown bill, and you could do that for the feet if you wanted to. I think you could use markers. Like I know that you can use Crayola. I'm just gonna see what happens down here. I think you can use Crayola markers even, especially on like wet fibers, and it works a little bit like watercolor. So I'm just going to see if this kind of sets up and takes, or if it's going to be something that just rubs off. And I think you'll see the difference between how the paint, of course, is absorbing into the cotton and how it's taking down there on the crepe. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit and see where we are. I always mix colors, because even these colors, which are very beautiful and natural, and you wouldn't call any of these like a primary or true color for whatever. I just think mixing colors gives you a little bit more natural look, because like if you look at almost anything in nature, or even just like look at the skin on your own hand, it's not consistent. It's not all one same color. It's many shades and tones, and so when you have a little bit of modeling, I think that makes it look more interesting and natural. And also, if you're going for that aged look, it might look like things have faded in some places or rubbed off or whatever. I was going to look up what this is called up here on the goose bill. I did not. But I have a fly, if you can see. It is the dopiest fly. I can just pick it up and move it around. He's must be on kind of his last little hurrah here before the end of his life. Nettie told me, I didn't know this, that a housefly's lifespan is 5 days. I swear I've had flies that have lived in my kitchen for a lot longer than that, but it must be multiple flies just all doing the same annoying things. Okay. Is that coming? Now I could add a little bit of darker color to contrast right at the base of what would be the bill. I don't know that I will, but you can do that to set it off a little bit. And you can add like a dark, 2 dark spots at the top there like they have. I'm not sure what those, I guess I need to look up. If I pause the video or stop filming again for whatever reason, I will try to remember to look that up, and then I'll let you know what I learn. Okay, I don't think that really looks too bad, honestly, for the paint on that gluey crepe. I am so sorry if you can hear the horn honking. That is Nettie honking at her dad. They were supposed to be going to do something, and he must have found something to hang him up, and she is trying to get him in the car. Okay. And then we'll just add an eye. So for eyes, I went very, very simple. And you could even go, if even the dot is a little intimidating to you, you can just do a little arc shape, like its eyes are closed, and that looks cute sometimes. I never know. I mean, you're committed once you do it, so I don't know if I want my goose to just have his little eyes closed, or if I think I'm just gonna do a regular open eye. And you can do a very simple dot, or you can try to leave a tiny speck of white, which I usually do like to use it, or leave a tiny bit of white, because I think that gives it a little bit more life. Okay, then now a trick that someone told me, and I haven't done it, but you can take a pin or a needle and just poke it straight through and then paint your eyes around it, and that will help you to get them lined up with each other. And that's a very okay, so for me that's close enough. What I was saying is, if you do poke the pin or needle through, it will leave that little white spot, but the hole might be visible, so I don't know if that will bother some of you, but I'm just putting a tiny bit of color here. And if I want it to be a little bit more washed out, I just usually smudge it with my finger a little bit. So anyway, I think those eyes look fine, and you can add a little bit of shading on the feet if you want to. You can add little black smudges at the tips for some little toenails, and that's about all I will do for the painting. Like I said, I just want it to be very approachable for you. And then to paint our little call duck. So I think it doesn't look as lumpy as I thought she was going to. I mean, she definitely feels a little lumpy. She's our cotton ball call duck, but I still think she's gonna look cute once she's got a little bill and some sparkles. And I just keep losing light and gaining light. You can see there's a tiny bit of bleeding, but I'm going to leave it for now and see if I'm okay with it. And put in her eyes. Shall I do a closed eye just so you can see? It's so simple. Close enough. I'm not sure they're exactly symmetrical. I would say one is farther back, but like I said, it is very hard to look at a duck's eyes kind of simultaneously. So we're gonna say good enough. And especially, you're not gonna hang your duck this way, I'm assuming. She's gonna look better and more recognizable from the side. So that's just a very, very easy way to do an eye if you are not having luck with other ways or you're worried about it. That's all I'm going to do, and then I'm just going to take a bit of my coffee and see. That's going to be a similar color to where her beak kind of color bled out, so I don't think that I'm going to get too fussed up about it. Now with some of the others that I was making, I was getting a little bit, I was taking some different watercolor colors, like some pink, and just putting tiny bits of some other colors in, but I'm just gonna do the coffee because that's, I think you guys have access to that probably and feel fairly comfortable with the results that you might get with that. And with the watercolor, it's a little bit more of a risk. If you're adding pink and green, you might feel like, okay, goosey goosey gander, whither shall I wander? All right, I really like his face. I don't love her front profile. I still think her beak isn't quite right, but from the side I think she's cute, and he's a handsome gander. I wanted to show you, this is seam binding rayon seam binding tape. Like it's vintage, and I find it at the thrift store. And so it's a nice ribbon alternative if you can't find any. It's what I like is compared to satin, like new satin ribbon, it's thinner. Let's see if I can get it. And I don't know, it just looks, it's not quite as shiny and slick looking. And then it also doesn't have a wrong side. It's just the same on each side. So I was going to show you a way you can kind of fudge, because sometimes when you tie a bow, they just get really bulky on something this small. So I go like this. And I cut it. And then I guess I'm going to decide which side is her good side. Maybe this side. So I'm just going to go like that. And I'm going to glue it down to itself. And this is a trick even so that if I decide I don't want the bow even, it's not glued onto her, it's just glued to itself. And then I'm going to make a little bow part. This is kind of how you would make a bow tie too. A fake one, not a real one, but it works for something small. Okay, and then I'm just gonna cut that, and this is actually, I didn't mention, but I cut the seam binding in half. Yeah, so I'm going to glue it down to the back. I cut it in half, and I'm trying not to touch it too much because it will fray a little bit. Okay, well, my other bow was a little nicer looking than this one, but this is very perfectly imperfect, and we'll say it's charmingly lopsided. And you can see this is not, I could just snip that off it right here. It's not gonna fuss up her cotton if I decide I don't want the bow. But what I'm going to do is just give both of them a little sprinkle of, I'm going to do just a tiny bit of the cornstarch, and then a tiny bit of mica dust. I'm going to do his feet and his bill. And just I kind of brush it, I think, on the highlight parts. So the tips of things and the top of the head, and a tiny bit on the breast. And the same with her. Okay, then we can add a bit of the starch again so that our mica flakes have, now you can do this with your glue wash. You just want something sticky and wet for your flakes to settle into. And she's so little, I don't want a ton of flakes because they're kind of overpowering, or they can be on something very small. A little bit of pixie dust, as Peter Pan said. And my favorite quote, one of them, is by J.M. Barrie: "All the world is made of faith and trust and pixie dust. Okay. I'm just tapping them in a little bit. A lot of them will fall off because they're not just, they're not set in anything very thick. They're just stuck to a tiny bit of the starch or glue, and they're kind of going to stick to the cotton fiber, but some of them are going to work their way off over time, and that's fine. I think that just a little bit of mica goes a long way and gives them that old-fashioned look. And I'll probably come back with just a quick little glamour shot and summary like I do to kind of, and then of course there will be the video that goes along with this on how to make some little puddings, or we'll see what else I come up with, but that's my thought for right now. Here is our group. Now I just made these three, this one, and this one with you. These others were kind of made as practice, and this video got so long that I didn't have time to put in hangers with you, but I wanted to say that you might not be in a rush to do that, because depending on if you decide to place things on their backs, that's going to cover up where you put the hanger anyway, and the hanger is going to need to come out of that. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is you might put in your hanger and then decide, oh, and this is a really silly duck that I didn't show you, how I was finishing her, but I showed you how I started her. Or I should call him a silly goose, although I don't know if he looks as much like a goose as a duck. But see, if I put a package, I was going to hang a package from his beak, but then look what happens. Oops, he tips so far forward that the package, that he is like this, rather than straight on. So you have to think about that when you place the hanger. So don't be in a rush to put your wire in, or what your twine or whatever you're going to attach, until you know kind of if there's going to be anything else involved. I hope that makes sense to you. So like most of these I haven't put them in, but this one I just attached the hanger to the Christmas pudding, and that way I know that it's going to hang very level because all of the weight is already on there. And what I like to do is once the ornament is kind of finished and everything is attached, I just take it and I will kind of poke in the needle where I think it might need to go, and then I just kind of let it hang, and I see how it hangs and if it's level. So that's kind of how I test where to put a hanger. And then if you're going to have to attach it, to something that's going to be on the back, you can put your little loop of wire into your pudding or your gift or whatever package, I guess, or whatever, and then glue it onto your bird. So that's why I didn't do hangers, is partly because of time and partly because if you do the next video, which is making some of the little accessories, that will kind of dictate where your hanger goes. But so let me show you our gander, and I think he looks lovely with some little vintage trim that I had. And the Christmas pudding, of course, is going to be in a video that should be up very shortly after this one, hopefully within a day or two, so you can learn to make Christmas pudding ornaments. And here is this silly guy. The hat I didn't show you how to make, but I have done that in other videos. It's literally you just cut like a triangle shape out of fabric or felt or batting, and I just glue it closed, and I cover the seam with a tiny bit of cotton, and then I painted it. So there's really nothing to it. Very, very simple. You can figure that one out. And then this is just a scrap of old fabric from a dress, and I did kind of a stylized eye to look more like a character, and I think he's kind of a clown duck. I don't know, but I think that's a fun option. And then this one took a turn too, because I had metallic pipe cleaners, and oops, that has cotton on it. And I had seen some of these little wreaths made of vintage tinsel, and usually they have like some flying bird or some sort of little angel face or ephemera in the middle of them. But I don't know, because this little duck was kind of sleeping or something, I thought she looked a bit like an angel, or I don't know what, but I thought maybe she would look cute in her own little kind of wreath. So I quick put that together, and I will just show that. It's very easy to look at and kind of figure out what I did, but I took about 2 minutes in this other video to show you in case you want to see what I actually did. But I just thought that was kind of a fun, nostalgic, kind of kitschy, gaudy type thing, a little bit like this one. So I can take her off still, and she can be her own little ornament if I want, but for some reason that just appealed to me. So that's how these turned out. Okay, I know this was a long one, so long that I ran out of light many times shooting it. And here we are again with the twinkle lights, but I think that there was just a lot that I wanted to show you, and I've thought about this a lot, and of course there was a story that went with it, and I maybe just got a little too excited, but I hope you'll just use the pieces that are helpful to you, and forgive me for the rest. I always enjoy making with you. I hope that many of you are inspired to make some handmade ornaments of your own for some special people, or just for yourself. And you're also a special person, so that counts. I thank you all for your encouragement and also your helpful comments. You help me move in directions sometimes that I wouldn't go on my own, and a lot of times those are really good directions, so I appreciate it so much. I hope that you have really lovely holidays, and I wish you all happy making.